We are recording and the webinar started. Just give it a couple minutes for everyone to get on.
All set, Tammy?
Yes, you're all set.
Great, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's virtual meeting of the Council on Post-Secondary Education. I'd like to ask that council members and presidents keep your cameras on, please. And staff, as you need to come into the meeting, flip your camera on, otherwise keep it off throughout the meeting. That will allow for better viewing for our council members across the board. Participating via Zoom webinar is Board of Education Chair Barbara Cottom, Council members Dennis Duffy, Michael Mello, Marianne Monty, Bishop Williams, President Sanchez, President Hughes, staff from each of the institutions and the OPC, as well as Commissioner Gilkey. Here present in the room at the Office of the Post-Secondary Commissioner, myself, Senator Izzo, and Anne Marie Coleman from our Labor Relations Office. Also, our student member, Mackenzie Raymond, is present on the Zoom, and we do anticipate member Rochelle Green to arrive at the meeting, but she will be late, and the record will reflect the time that she arrives. All of that being said, I call the meeting to order and declare that we do have a quorum. During the meeting, the council may move into executive session. At that time, all non-council members, presidents, will be placed on hold. When the executive session ends, the council will return to open session and the meeting host will release the hold, allowing all of the attendees proper viewing and rejoin the meeting. I will note that the only activity that will take place after the executive session will be to seal the minutes of the executive session and then adjourn. So if you'd like to hang around for that, you're more than welcome to, but you're not going to miss anything interesting or exciting at that point. May I have a motion that the Council on Post-Secondary Education accept the agenda for this evening's meeting, July 19th? Motion made by?
So moved.
Bishop Williams, seconded by?
Mello.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None, stands passed. Thank you. Next, item 2, approval of the minutes. We have 2 sets. May I have a motion that the Council on Post-Secondary Education approve the minutes from our special meeting on July 7th? Motion made by?
So moved.
Mello.
Made by Izzo, seconded by Mello. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Stands passed. Second set of minutes. We have 2 sets of minutes, you know?
Open session, executive session. but there's-
Just one, no, it's just one set.
I'm sorry about that. I'll go to report from the chairs. I'll just make for comment that the published meeting schedules that we put out at the beginning of the year for the remainder of the year is likely to change as we're reconstituting the council's committee structure right now. And once we put that committee structure in place, the committee schedule will affect the council schedule. So stand by for a update to the schedule for the remainder of the year. And I apologize for the meetings and the dates having been fluid a little bit. We've had some quorum challenges as folks are being allowed out of their houses and people are busy and out and active, and it's creating some quorum challenges, but we're working through that and appreciate everybody's flexibility. I also noticed from social media, I want to congratulate both President Hughes and Sanchez for both of your police departments receiving statewide accreditation for the first time. That's a great accomplishment by your departments, and appreciate the effort that went into that process. You know, it's not an easy lift, so great job by your team. Chair Cotter, I'm not sure if you have a report or anything to add to your statement.
I don't for today.
Great, so then we'll see that report and we'll turn it over to the commissioner for the commissioner's report.
Great, thank you, Chairman Del Giudice and Madam Chair Cottom and council members. I'm pleased to bring you several areas of work our office has been engaged in since our last commissioner's report at the April meeting. As a reminder, our focus has been to address focus our state on significantly increasing the number of Rhode Islanders with a post-secondary credential, with specific emphasis on underserved populations and alignment with Rhode Island's labor market. We established an action agenda in March called Meeting the Moment, which has permitted our office to execute an approach that is based on 3 categories: K-12 to post-secondary transitions, post-secondary completion, and external engagement. Since our last meeting, and I want to focus on K-12 transitions first, our office has been working with the Rhode Island Department of Education to begin 2 additional threads of work to focus our joint agencies regarding the K-12 to post-secondary transition space. First of those is to work alongside our K-12 colleagues to better understand and dissect why a significant portion of Rhode Island high school graduates arrive at our institutions of higher ed unprepared for college level work. Last week, our office was joined by the leadership of the Community College of Rhode Island College, and the University of Rhode Island, specifically Sarah Enright, Helen Tate, and Dean Labuti, to discuss these issues with approximately 100 K-12 educators. The topics that we discussed over an hour with this panel was math and literacy readiness, FAFSA completion, and transparency of the college academic and non-academic expectations. We know that college readiness is a joint endeavor across K-12 and post-secondary, and we're just ecstatic to work alongside Commissioner Infante Green and her team to dive into this. This dialogue is part of RIDE's Reimagining the High School Experience, and it's critical that we continue it over the foreseeable future. In addition to college readiness, our office has attracted outside technical resources that are coming in free to Rhode Island from Excel in Ed, which is a national think tank started by Governor Jeb Bush several years ago, that's working with states to map out college to career pathways across K-12 and post-secondary. Excel in Ed is developing a policy audit across K-12 and higher ed that permits students to seamlessly maneuver from education to work. And we'll be presenting those findings from that audit later this fall. In our post-secondary completion bucket, OPC has done a few things that I want to highlight. First, we stood up a cross-institutional approach to seamless transfer since we last met. The intention is to produce a statewide transfer proposal early this fall. To my knowledge, statewide transfer has been attempted in the past with some progress, but has fallen short of the expectations that we daily champion, which is to say that all students that have successfully completed a degree at the community college should have a seamless pathway to transfer to one or more of our 4-year institutions. I want to thank the leadership from the teams of CCRI, from Rhode Island College, and from URI for their commitment to this work group to get this work restarted. And particularly to President Hughes and President Sanchez for not only their support with their capacity from their leadership teams, but for actually joining the meetings and work group meetings when their schedule permits. Again, this work group should have a plan of action for transfer in late summer or early fall for the presentation to the council. Related to transfer, our office will also coordinate, as we talked about in March, a cross-institutional approach to better understanding the opportunities with prior learning assessment, or also known as credit for prior experience, with specific focus on our veterans, but other targeted populations that we know that have experience that we could award as credit at our institutions, and that would accelerate individuals, Rhode Islanders, particularly those that are unemployed, back into our post-secondary institutions to earn that next degree or credential. A third area of focus is to increase the number of adults with short-term credentials. PLA is obviously one of those I just mentioned, particularly those that attend one of our education centers. For this area, we are also in discussion with the Department of Labor and Training that would also look at sustaining our Rhode Island Reconnect program and potentially expanding it with investment of stimulus dollars, and to better understand how workforce training can be aligned to things like adult education and post-secondary certificates and degrees. For example, when someone does non-credit post-secondary or non-credit workforce training, could we align that to one of our degrees or credentials and expand that so that more adults are seamlessly getting credit and working towards that 2- and 4-year degree? The third bucket is called external engagement. This spring and summer, our office has been engaged with external constituents across Rhode Island to coordinate and advance our work from 3 vantage points: the public, local government, and the General Assembly. Regarding the public, OPC has tackled earned media, from a continued evening presence with Ashley Cullinane and Channel 10 to engaging with local media such as the Warwick Beacon, to finally eating hot dogs with the Providence Journal. Our office has really engaged earned media. We've embraced it as a way to get our word out about our different priority areas. And I've even learned to say a word like gagger, which is referred to a Rhode Island hot dog, apparently. At the local,
So let's get it right.
at the local level, OPC has engaged all 39 local leaders, mayors, town managers. I've spoken about it in a couple other updates, breaking down local education information for all cities and towns across Rhode Island. We've developed a 2-page tool for all 39 communities, and we host it on our website, Rhode Island Reconnect, under town and city data, that connects education attainment from high school through advanced degrees, like a doctorate degree or a law degree, and compares them with the completion rates of folks from all different backgrounds, including race. It connects them to income and wages, and post-secondary enrollment after 1 year of high school graduation. You can find those at rireconnect.org/city-town-data. Finally, OPC has been engaged with the General Assembly with the following legislative priorities from the spring and in the summer. First priority was to support the passage of the Rhode Island Promise, and all kudos go to the leadership there at CCRI. Second was to support the budget increase for Rhode Island College for approximately $5.9 million. And third priority was to request additional resources and FTEs for OPC to address capacity gaps at our current organization. And I'm happy to report and take no credit for that alongside our institutions, we successfully lobbied and advocated for the continued investment in the Rhode Island Promise, started many years ago, and the renewed investment in Rhode Island College. I'll bet we fell a little short with the OPC request, but we look to engage the legislature in the fall and next year to follow up with that strategy. So, Chair Del Giudice, that is my report for the commissioner.
Great. Any questions for the commissioner? Mr. Duffy?
Yes, Mr. Commissioner. With regard to the K through 12 to secondary transition, has there been further discussion about reinstating a graduation requirement like the one we have right across the border in Massachusetts? I continue to think that is the single most important agenda item for both branches of the council.
Yeah, so that has come up and came up in our panel presentation last week with over 100 K-12 educators alongside my colleagues with CCRI, Rhode Island College, and URI. So that the topic did come up, came up alongside with math readiness, came up with strategies such as alternative math pathways, which looks at college algebra versus statistics or applied math. It also came up with more transparency from the higher ed side about what we expect a student to be able to do when they arrive on campus in our credit classes. So yeah, lots of discussion around different strategies that are based on evidence that provide Rhode Islanders to make that leap. I'll tell you, I've been involved in college and career readiness standards in many states. It was how I started my part of my career in higher ed, particularly implementing legislation to do college and career readiness standards. Back in the late 2008, 2009, high school graduation requirements were certainly a part of that.
Well, I commend that, and I think you should keep it at the top of our agenda, because there's no reason students across the border in Massachusetts can do it and our students can't. And we don't have to reinvent the wheel. The system already exists, standards exist, they've been proven and they work. And I think we just have to keep pushing that. I think that's the single most important agenda item for this council.
Appreciate the comment. Any other questions or thoughts from the report?
No. Commissioner, I understand you have three additional items or two additional items?
Yes, and I'll help some, my document's not coming up, so I'll need some help leading into those.
Okay. So there are two notices of change, one from Rhode Island College and one from the community college. So I can just take it for you, Commissioner.
Thank you very much.
Well, just a little commentary on both of these notices. Again, so these are notices of change, and in accordance to Article 20 in the enabling legislation, the institutions notify the council when they make these types of changes. The council does not have an opportunity for voting on those changes. I seem to recall, and I don't know, if, Commissioner, if this is something that our staff at OPC is going to take for action for the receiving side of this, or to both institutions. But there used to be a fiscal note attached to all of these that described the profit and loss, if you would, or the P&L for any changes, that it may require X number of staff, it may require this much more in payroll and benefits if we have those changes. We anticipate this many students will enroll because of this change, therefore generating X number of dollars in overhead toward the program. And these packages don't contain that. I noticed the last ones did not either. So, Commissioner, if you could take for action just to look at what is A, required by the statute, and B, what is the right policy. I feel like I would like more information on both of these, but I don't want to belabor them during the discussion. So if you could take that action, please.
Happy to do that, and also find out in history when we've done that before to provide a little context as well. That was before my time as commissioner, but I'm happy to do that research and report back to the council.
Great, thank you. The first notice of change is a new program, concentration of special education transition within exceptional learning needs, MED, at Rhode Island College. We received notice from the college about the program, and its establishment is within the role scope of Rhode Island College, and therefore, again, the council does not have approval authority. President Sanchez, I will ask that, again, as I already mentioned about the fiscal note, knowing the challenges that we've had at the college, specifically in the graduate programs, and more so in the School of Education, I believe in FY19 alone, they ran a $1 million deficit in the School of Education master's programs. I'm hopeful that has been a fiscal review of at least this program and any other changes being made to ensure that we're not going to add to the deficits in their programs. Again, I know we're not prepared to have that discussion because they're not included in the package. But if you two could take for action and get back to the council a fiscal note for this master's program, and we'll dig into some of the others as we move forward.
Happy to work with the commissioner on it, absolutely.
Thank you, President Sanchez. Senator Rizzo?
Yeah, with respect to the addition of this concentration, I think it's really, I think it's good. It's a good move. I don't know how many folks realize how important and how difficult the transition of our young people into the adult system is. It has confounded Rhode Island policymakers for years. It continues to do that. We've made some strides with special needs kids, and something like this can only enhance as more people are specifically trained and can provide better advocacy and assistance with doing that and continue to improve the system. I think is a great benefit. It's a huge problem that folks have worked on for years, but the whole issue of transition, it's a tough one, and RIDE is going to be very much involved with it. They are and continue to be.
Completely agree. Thank you, Senator. Next notice of change is from the Community College of Rhode Island of a new cyber defense certificate The establishment of this certification is within, again, the role scope of the community college and therefore does not require council approval. Same commentary, President Hughes, about this one did get into a little bit more of the resources necessary to execute. I know it very well parallels with the Associates in Cyber program, which I'm very familiar with because of my day job. And similar to what the senator just said, there's a huge need, unlimited need for cyber professionals and cyber training. So I appreciate the new program. All right, that concludes the two. Senator Rizzo.
Yeah, I just have a question with that change. On page 2 of the information provided to us, the initiation date for this is September 2021. First certificate date is December 2021. And then on the last page, the course sequence, it's a 22 credit, and it looks like it involves 2 semesters. So how does that work? Are there some students who are already engaged in, they'd actually during September be doing second semester's worth of work? And what I'm just curious as to what those numbers look like, if they were available, but if not, but that was my only question. And if I was right in making that assumption.
So thank you, Senator, for the question. I certainly can come back to the council with actual numbers of enrollees and graduates. With respect to the certificate itself, and it is contained in the material we sent over, but just for this audience's learning, this is a certificate we already deliver. We simply did not deliver it as a credit-bearing certificate on the credit-bearing side of the house. So we have been offering this certificate in partnership with our national security partners and simply want to make a certificate, which, as you realize, is a shorter term credential acquisition to our students, and it is scaffolded in to the degree. So the short version of your question is we have students that are already enrolled in this work, and we're looking to award academic credit for the work they're already doing.
If I could just add, that's very similar to the concentration in special education. It's not a new program. These are just revisions to the existing program, but happy to provide additional data.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. That concludes the notice of changes, and we'll move now to the president's reports, and we'll go to the community college and President Hughes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and members of the council. Good to be with you virtually and anxious to be back together in person. This evening, I will focus my remarks primarily on enrollment and what we're looking at this summer and fall, our strategies to increase those numbers. And then I'll finish with a few brief, more general college updates. So let me move first to enrollment. We've been having this conversation now for a year. So if we go back to where we were in July of last year, I certainly remember one of the focal points of my discussions with you then, and that was really the cataclysmic decline that we were facing in enrollment. In fact, at this time last year, give or take a day, our enrollment was down by 30%. So I want to remember and remind us all of that context. I hope that in the meetings that we have taken together subsequent to that time, you all have heard a message I've endeavored to communicate, which is as a community college, we will be coming out of this pandemic last, and we do not anticipate a rapid recovery. So we have strategies to recover, but I anticipate it will be every day of 2 years before we see enrollment numbers like the ones we had in the fall of 2019. So I want to sort of start there with context and then move into some of the data, which, as I believe you are all aware, we track every day. So the first email I look at every morning is an enrollment data tracker that shows where we are with headcount, with credit enrollment, and compares where we are every single day relative to last year. So let's start there. As of last week, which is what we sent in our report, so I'll use that data, our fall enrollment is down 10% as compared to last year at the same time. And again, I began by saying we were down roughly 30% this time last year. Let's break it down now into cohorts as we look at who we're trying to recover and what the major segments of our enrollment traditionally is at the community college. So our first time full-time cohort is down by 27%. The majority of those students since the launch of Promise are Promise students. So our first time full-time cohort is down 27%. Our first time part-time cohort is down 20%. We look closely, as do all higher ed institutions. How are we doing holding on to our students? So let's look at the students we had with us in the spring. So just this past spring of 21, of those students, 64% have not yet registered for classes. So for context, I think I would offer the following in particular about that 64%. I think two things are true. First, as you all well know, our courses in the spring were almost entirely virtual. The vast majority were virtual. Our students have struggled with that delivery, and I think are disinclined to be thinking about college. So we are continuing to get the message out as aggressively as possible that we are coming back in a significant way this fall with in-person learning. The second thing, which is, I would say, slightly sunnier news, we often see a rush to enroll in the later summer months. But the fact is, the data that I'm sharing is comparing where we are this year to where we were last year. So these are sobering numbers. Believe me, these are sobering numbers. And I'll remind everyone, if we take ourselves back to last summer, which in almost every way is worse than where we are this summer. As of this time last summer, we had made a decision that we would be offering our coursework virtually. Where did we land last fall? You all will remember, we landed at 7.4% down. So it was incredibly grim this time last year, and our enrollment team and entire student services team worked around the clock and cut that decline and outperformed the national decline significantly. So we have our work cut out for us between now and when courses start. And I want to walk the council and the audience members through what our strategies are this summer in order to mitigate that loss. I've talked to you since this spring about our GEAR funds. So those are federal dollars that were awarded to CCRI. We took that money and targeted two particular populations. You will remember first, those, think of them as the high school graduates from last spring who without COVID likely would have gone to college with us or elsewhere in the state. So our first group that we're looking to get back are those 2020 high school graduates who, because of COVID, never made it to college in the first place. So that's 3,000 class of 2020 high school graduates who didn't enroll. And for that cohort of students, we have established the COVID Recovery High School Scholarship. The short version of that scholarship is that it mirrors the Rhode Island Promise. So similar bar to maintain. And the goal is to just recover those students that we lost to COVID. We have $1.25 million allocated for that group to support approximately 300 students. That is our anticipation, is that we will capture roughly 10% of that body of 3,000. As of today, we have just over 2/3 of that number. So just over 200 of those students have told us they're interested, and our advisors are working closely with them to make sure they're enrolled in the fall. So the second population is that 130,000 group of Rhode Islanders, adult Rhode Islanders who have some college but no degree. We talk about this population all the time with this group, and we have designed a COVID Recovery Finish Scholarship. So that is for adult learners who are halfway to a degree or a certificate and who were not enrolled at any institution within the past year. So it is an attempt to really reach out and recover some students that all of us have lost over the last year, and to support adult students who are well on their way to a certificate or a degree. With that group, we have allocated $4 million to support approximately 800 students. We've heard from more than 400 potential students that are interested in learning more. And again, our advisors are working hard with that group to make sure we get them enrolled for fall. As you may remember from previous presentations, both of these scholarships are last dollar scholarships, meaning those who are eligible will be required to fill out a FAFSA and use their federal aid dollars, their Pell dollars, before receiving these scholarships. We're working closely with our colleagues both at Rhode and at the OPC to help identify and communicate with potential students about both of these scholarships. I was just reading an article today, my guess is many of my colleagues too, and I guess I would want this group to know free tuition is an incredibly powerful lever, and on its own, it is not enough. And we are cogently aware that we need to be significantly focused on all of the other work that our students and potential students are going to require in order to enroll and perform successfully. And so what does that mean? Hands-on advising, I'm not sure there's any topic we've spent more time bringing to this council in the time I've been part of this work. We have invested some of our GEAR funding to hire 2 advisors who are uniquely focused on these scholarships and these 2 cohorts of potential students. We also are using some of our federal relief money to invest in additional academic advisors. As you all know, this has been one of our priorities for years, and we are investing some of that federal relief money into increasing the workforce in that area. Other strategies, I think I talked at the last meeting, holding in-person open enrollment days. They're one-stop shops. They're incredibly inspiring to see. I would encourage you all to see them, where a student can walk into the college and leave having set up everything they will need in order to begin classes with us in the fall. We've held 4 of them already at our Warwick campus, 3 at our Liston campus, and are looking to continue. I think our next one is tomorrow at the Liston campus. So what about marketing and advertising? We have expanded our reach to include broadcast television. Again, that was using some of our federal relief dollars in order to recover some students that we know we've lost. And new platforms, including TikTok. I hope everybody has seen the TV commercial, which really, I think, focuses on our value proposition and challenges some of the old stereotypes about what a typical CCRI student is and is capable of. Next, really micro-targeting those Rhode Islanders who have lost their jobs because of a change in the workforce, and rolling out those new certificate programs that you all have heard us talk about. So business essentials, data analytics, software development, those are fully enrolled, and just an enormous amount of interest in them, both from employers with their incumbent workforce and new students that are coming into the college. So I want to briefly refer to our vaccine policy and talk about what the impact is on our enrollment. We anticipated this would be so, and we were nonetheless strongly supportive of mandating a vaccine for our students who wanted to come back for in-person classes. We knew it would have downward pressure on our enrollment, and we believe that it is. So why did we make the decision? Because we feel a strong obligation to doing everything we can to creating a safe community for our students, our potential students, and the entire college population. So what do we know about the data? We know that Rhode Island is doing well. with getting Rhode Islanders vaccinated. We also know there are meaningful gaps in terms of race, ethnicity, and age. So the most recent data from the Department of Health tells us that while 70.9% of all adults 18 years old and older in Rhode Island are fully vaccinated, only 43% of Latinx and 41% of Black Rhode Islanders are fully vaccinated. When we then move to looking at age, only 44% of those between the ages of 19 and 29 are vaccinated. And that is obviously where the belly of our students reside. So these are our students. 40% of our students are BIPOC and 66% are 24 years old and younger. So what does it mean? It means we have a lot of ground to make up to get our communities of color and our younger students vaccinated before the start of the fall semester. So how are we approaching responding to this vaccine hesitancy? 3 ways. We're holding vaccine clinics at every single enrollment event. So when I say you can arrive and leave having done what you need to be in-person classes in the fall, the vaccine clinics are a big part of it. We are working with the Department of Health to continue to offer pop-up clinics and also drive-through clinics. So we have held pop-up clinics at our campuses. We want to continue to do that and make it available as a drive-through. Second, look, we recognize we're going to work our tails off to get as many students as we can enrolled for the beginning of our fall semester. We already accept that we are going to have students that are sort of suddenly going to be reading our messages, who are going to be engaged, who are going to want to get the vaccine and begin in-person classes, and they will not be fully vaccinated in time to do it. You all will remember that last fall, in response simply to the chaos of COVID, we offered a late start compressed fall session, and I'm pleased to share that we will be doing the same thing this fall. One of the focuses of that late start offering is so that we can gather those students who are going to get vaccinated, but simply not in time for that official start of classes. Second, we are being realistic. We set an audacious goal of having 70% of our courses in person this fall. We are growing the number of courses we're offering online because we absolutely want to hold on to every student we can. I'm not prepared this evening to talk to you about what that balance of offerings is going to look like, but certainly we'll be prepared to come back at our next meeting and share more detail about what that looks like. Finally, related to this concept of late start, but slightly different, the workforce side of the college is not on a fixed, 4 times a year we begin semesters. We have rolling starts. And so the concept will be, we will be aggressively recruiting to engage and enroll Rhode Islanders in our workforce partnership side of the college, with the desire to then move them into the credit-bearing side of the house as they are securing those vaccines and are then able to join us with our academic offerings. Finally, in order to really get this message out, I don't know the woman who's been all over social media with President Biden and Vice President Harris at the White House, but I'm sure my children do. We're doing the same thing. We're using our students to be our ambassadors and to talk about why it's so important to get vaccinated, to keep yourself and your family and your community vaccinated. So we're using all of our social media to get that out there. We launched it last week in both English and Spanish, and just the sort of organic engagement, meaning not paid advertising, has been tremendously positive. And I really want to thank our marketing and communications team for that effort. I'll just finish by saying, I feel like I could have sort of grabbed the recording I gave this time last year and just push play in closing. These are sobering numbers. These are enormous challenges. If anybody can make up this ground, it is the student services team at CCRI. For all of them who are listening, I cannot express my gratitude to the group that is doing this work. I know you've been at it for 16 months. We're going to need to keep at it for a few more months. And I am just enormously impressed by your dedication and by your effectiveness. So I'm going to move on now, just in closing, to a couple of college updates. Thank you, Chair, for sharing that our campus police has received full accreditation from the Rhode Island Police Accreditation Commission. We all know what it means. It means we are aligning our work with national best practices. When Chief Collins arrived at the college several years ago, he looked me in the eye within the first 30 days and said, "This is important for our team, and I'm going to make sure we get it done." I really want to thank Chief Collins and his command staff for getting it done. I'm going to move on in the interest of time. Briefly looking at our Division of Workforce Partnerships, we're really happy. The U.S. Department of Transportation's Maritime Administration designated us a center of excellence, much the way we were designated one for cybersecurity. It's a big deal. It's for our domestic maritime workforce training and education. There's only 27 community colleges in the country to get it. We're the ocean state after all. It makes a whole heck of a lot of sense that we're doing this work well, and it recognizes us for our training programs that are preparing students for careers in the maritime industry. And that's whether it's offshore wind to the marine trades and composites manufacturing. We all recognize, and it was cited in the sort of second rollout of the Brookings report, that this blue economy is important now and is going to be increasingly central, and we intend to be right at the center of that work. I want to congratulate both Tekla Moquin and Jamie Nash, who lead our Division of Workforce Partnerships, for what they've done with their team to achieve this designation. Thank you. Two final comments. I want to welcome Barbara Nauman as our new Dean of BSTEM. Barbara has been a member of the CCRI faculty and administration for many years. She came on as the division's interim dean last fall, did an exceptional job. We conducted a search, as you all are aware, and she was selected by the committee and Vice President Costigan. Prior to being our interim dean, she was the assistant dean. So we're pleased to see that kind of upward growth and development come from the college, and she began her career at CCRI in the business department. So big congratulations to Dean Nauman, and we're thrilled that she accepted our offer. Finally, in closing, brief comment about advancement. For all of you, the council and otherwise, who joined us at our 5th annual Raising Opportunities benefit. It was a virtual event. For the audience, Congressman Cicilline came back from Washington live and took the benefit in person at the Great Hall. It was a ton of fun, and even better, we raised a lot of money. So we raised almost $500,000. That is for comeback scholarships. So for adult Rhode Islanders who we need to bring back. In my earlier comments, I talked about, free college, free tuition is not a silver bullet. Students, even students who have some support for their tuition, still need additional funding for things like transportation, childcare, housing, and books. So it was an incredibly inspiring night listening to our students, and I really want to thank everyone who helped us raise that money. So, Mr. Chair, that concludes my report. Thank you, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Great, thank you, Madam President. Please take a sip of water. You must need it. So thank you for the very thorough report. Before I ask any questions, I'll ask the council questions for President Hughes on her report. Great. President Hughes, I want to make sure my note is correct. Can you tell me again the actual, currently you're down, is it 10% from about this day last year? Did I write that down properly?
Why don't I just give everybody the actual numbers? So I have the report from today. I do want, we sent the report that you all read. So because we sent it in advance, but here's today's numbers just so we have them. We are down 12.3% today against last year. That means we have enrolled 7,400 students right now, 7,404. Last year we had enrolled 8,442. So we can do that math. It's 1,038 students is the difference between this year and last year. And we're down also predictably with credit enrollment. Does that help you?
That's exactly it. Yep, thank you. And the retention number is also startling, but it's clear your team you have your arms around it and you're going after it. And it's not uncommon to be in that position at this point in the calendar. So
It's
I
what's
guess-
well, it's unusual without COVID, and it's what we're seeing all over the United States. So it's incredibly sobering, and all of our colleagues are facing a similar challenge.
And then last, the new dean that you just mentioned, that went by me a little, I wasn't quite prepared for that. So it's the new dean of the business school or business department? Is that-
Business, science, technology, engineering, and math, apologies, acronym BSTEM. So yes,
And she was a faculty member who became assistant dean and is now dean.
correct.
That's
So,
fabulous.
yeah, exactly. Yep.
Great. So that's my only questions. Any other questions? Chair Cotton?
I just had one, President Hughes, on this admissions and enrollment. What are we seeing nationally? I assume our trend is the same. Where are these students? Are they working? Are they still receiving some sort of assistance and haven't focused on the fall yet?
Yeah.
What do you know about them?
Sure. I think we could have a full day's conversation about this population, and I think it's a complex answer. I would start with the following. The majority of our students are supporting families in one way or another. And the majority of our students are part of the communities that have been most negatively impacted by COVID. We've talked about this every single time we've come together. So I think our students are still very much embedded and living in COVID. It's not done for them. Their families have lost their livelihoods. They've lost family members. In many cases, they've lost their homes. And so as you know, the students with whom I have talked, who we have not been able to re-enroll, again and again, what we're hearing is, listen, I want to come back to college. I am committed to my education. And right now, it just can't come first. So it is why the federal relief dollars and the foundation dollars are so vital, because if we can step in and provide some resources to help resolve some of those challenges, then we can get them back in. And that's very real. Those are, at this point, the basic needs: housing, food, childcare, before we even get to tuition and the more, the costs that are more explicitly associated with going to college. I think the next piece is, you're right, there are still federal unemployment benefits being paid. I can't say that's been a strong focus of where we've been. I certainly hope that we will be able to inspire folks that haven't come back to come back as soon as possible. And lastly, I'd be happy to come back with more data, but I will simply say, since this whole thing started, all I can ask our team to do is its best. And all I can do to measure performance is by comparing our enrollment against other community colleges. And what we know is CCRI has outperformed what we've seen nationally. Will that be true this fall? I have no idea. Look at where we are with unemployment across New England. There are, as you know well, Madam Chair, there's just so many variables that are going to determine where we end up.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question.
Go ahead, Mark.
I'm just curious, and I know that there's not an answer for this necessarily, but if I'm understanding what the president is saying and the math that we're looking at here, it's possible that we end up worse off than last year. Is that a fair statement to make, actually?
Yes, it is. Our target, Member Mello, is that we reach where we were last year. That's a win.
Right.
That's our target.
And so our next meeting isn't until September. And I know the chairman said that we were going to make some modifications to that, but I assume then also that on a parallel path of all the work that your people are doing to try to find those students and working hard at that, I know they do, and as do you, there's also a parallel path of what happens when the number falls short and we have to deal with the financial strain that then puts on us on top of the strain we've all been under. So I assume you're working on all of that too. Not asking for an answer, but at some point that's
I'd love to
reality.
provide an answer now so that
Okay.
there's not concern going forward. Our CFO, Kristen Alberton, is on the call. She'd be happy to now, or an executive session, speak to more detailed financial analysis. What I can say broadly, we have a target, and then we have a budget that we have built that is realistic and responding to this crisis. So we are financially built to make it through this crisis, and the federal dollars have been absolutely essential to that planning. So if you'd like more color, I see Kristen on the line. Kristen, anything you would add to answer Member Mello's question?
No, ma'am, that's exactly right. The purpose of the CARES, the HERF funding that we have received from the federal government is to sustain us through this. So that's what we will have to lean on.
I guess, Mike, the only thing I would add with my, here's the only thing that has changed from where we were last year in terms of what you were hearing from me. A year ago, we didn't have those DC dollars, and we were in the worst financial crisis the college has ever experienced. We now, why are you hearing the concern in my voice? You're hearing it because thousands of Rhode Islanders who should be with us aren't, and that worries me. But in terms of our financial position, we're strong.
Fair, thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Mr. Duffy.
I'm just wondering, any second thoughts about the vaccination policy? I'm just shocked to hear how many of your target student group have chosen not to be vaccinated, and what that's really going to be adverse more than we ever anticipated on your attendance numbers.
So Dennis, here's what I can say. We made a decision. I support that decision. I think it is the right decision to keep Rhode Island safe, including especially our students. I feel a strong responsibility for CCRI to be part of that. I can share with you, including leaders of color, the strong desire, including Dr. Nicole Alexander Scott, is to see our students vaccinated so they're safe. As an educator, what I can say is running this college predominantly online is not producing the desired learning outcomes for our students, and they're also not enrolling. So even if we were to pivot and go to 100% online, again, it's back to the silver bullet thesis. So I will tell you, it is sobering, and I want to see what we can get done for this fall. And certainly it's a topic we can come back and discuss, but it feels like the right thing to do for Rhode Island.
Member Duffy, this is Shannon. I'm happy to add to that one as well. We had some data in Kentucky about enrollment apprehension because of the lack of in-person delivery of courses. And so a lack of effort, if we have to go and shut back down again, which a lot of institutions may have to do, particularly if the Delta variant continues to spread, having that vaccination would theoretically allow in-person to continue because of that vaccination policy. And so it could actually put our institutions in a stronger position to maintain enrollment over the next year. Whereas institutions that don't have that requirement may have to go back to all remote learning like we did last year if there's another big outbreak. So, it's really hard to make these decisions in real time when you don't have that robust data. But we do know the last year and a half on at least from about 100,000 member survey of the Kentucky system that students wanted that in-person delivery versus the complete remote.
Thank you. Senator Izzo, then Bishop Williams.
Yeah, I realize that for the college and for CCRI that this is extraordinarily complex, and I applaud all of your efforts with regards to it. It truly is overwhelming. I'm just rather curious. The gear money, you mentioned a total of about 5.2 million between the two cohorts that you were focusing on, and what I'm curious about is. And on the same token, we're saying that the community college, you've prepared a financial plan that will get you through this no matter what. Now, would those dollars only be real to you if in fact you recruit students and they attend? I mean, if not, and how long do those dollars, how long do they stay for those two cohorts? Is this something that will end at the end of 2021? What happens to the residual dollars? How does that work?
So thank you for your, for your words of support, Senator Izzo. I've got Greg LaPointe on the call, and obviously also Commissioner Gilkey. The funds as a pass-through are managed through OPC. Before I turn it over to see if either one can answer the timing question, because I cannot with enough confidence to do it. What I will say with these federal dollars is there is all sorts of language built in, recognizing the fluidity of what is happening, that you can apply for extensions. If you have a need to extend the spend, you're able to request that. So I'm just going to look to my team, Greg, see if you have any further details for the senator.
Yeah, so for those gear funds for those two programs, we do have money allocated through August 2023. So the goal of both those programs are to get those students graduated in 2 years. So that's kind of how it's been budgeted.
And just one other piece. Thank you for that. So it goes so those monies are good. You can continue to work on those cohorts through 2023, which is a good thing. So you can, but whatever. So that answers that question. What happens if when you say if it's like a worst case scenario? How do you begin to decide that you have enough students in a particular class? In other words, are you going to run a class of 5?
Oh,
how does that work?
They're just part of the broader, they're not cohorted in terms of how we run the programs. They're cohorted, they're targeted in terms of who we're reaching out to, but we're already serving some of the adult students this summer. So you enroll, if you fit one of those 2 target populations, we just give you a course schedule and you get going. It's not a cohorted learning opportunity.
I understand that. But what I'm asking is generally overall, when you look at the overall enrollment, not just those 2 cohorts, right? If the enrollment is down significantly, then so is part of that economic plan that you then have to look at what courses we can offer. It gets to a date and you only have 4 kids signed up for a particular class.
Yes.
Yes.
That's done in partnership with academic affairs and student services, and Greg LaPointe is actually squarely in the middle. So we look at the data that we have and we make decisions about the affordability of offering it, along with the importance of those students who are enrolled, even if it's a lower enrolled class, of getting that class underway and moving. So Greg, I don't know if there's anything else you want to share. Also, we'd be happy to come back with a further discussion. I'm aware we've been at this for a while, so I'll take my lead from you, Senator, and from the chair, however you want to do this.
So, yeah, Greg, if you
I'm intimately involved in the schedule on a daily basis. So just as an example of us kind of looking at demand, interesting enough, our online courses are filling much faster than our in-person courses at the moment. So we've begun to switch the modality on some courses. So we are definitely looking at kind of our fill rates and optimizing the schedule on a weekly basis to make sure that we can we fill as many courses as possible and be able to balance. We are going to have some very low enrolled sections or courses that we are going to need to have for students to move forward in their program. So it's kind of this balance that we have now on a weekly basis, but I am deeply involved in that work every day with academic affairs.
Great, thank you.
If I could just add really, really quickly, Senator, we have 2 sources of the federal dollars we're talking about, the gear funds that are for those particular students. And then we have our HERF funding, which is the Higher Ed Emergency Relief Fund. So part of our plan to spend those HERF funds are to make sure that we may have to accommodate smaller class sizes, either because of social distancing or because we have a need for certain students. So part of what those funds are intended for is the exact purpose that you're talking about, to be able to sustain smaller class sizes if we have to, be able to continue to pay our faculty or bring in additional adjuncts if we need to.
Great, thank you for that clarification. Bishop Williams.
Actually, I'll pass. It's not that pressing, and I want to move on.
Very good, sir. Thank you. Madam President, thank you very much for your detailed report and the discussion that followed. And we'll turn now to President Sanchez at Rhode Island College.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Great to see you. Great to see all the council members. I have a number of updates for my report this evening. First, this was a particularly productive legislative session for the college. As you all know, our top priority during this session was our budget request, which included the 5.9 million increase in state general revenue. I'm very, very happy to report that the RIC Compact in particular, which is the college's renewed commitment to providing all Rhode Islanders with access to a high quality four-year degree, resonated, I think, extremely well with lawmakers. RIC is incredibly appreciative of the legislature's support, particularly Speaker Shikarchi and Senate President Ruggiero. I think clearly their support signals an increasing awareness of the critical role that Rhode Island College plays in Rhode Island's attainment goals. The 5.9 million increase represents the largest increase in state general revenue for the college in 20 years. And with this investment, RIC will be able to fulfill its commitment to full-time faculty. We're going to be able to recall very strategically, tactically, several staff members. We're going to be able to expand online, hybrid, night and weekend academic programming as well. I certainly want to thank the numerous legislators, as well as so many faculty, staff, alumni, and friends of the college who recognize the value of supporting RIC. And while higher education faces numerous challenges in the months ahead, RIC stands ready to support the state's current and future labor market demands and the overall economy. There's an incredible amount of work right now happening as we gear up to open up for this fall. We have multiple working groups to make sure that our plans incorporate healthcare best practices based upon the current guidance. And as you know, that current guidance seems to be changing on a regular basis, but we have 5 different groups looking at the opening from community health, academics, student life, human resources, and campus space use. In fact, we're going to be sending out a draft plan this next week that will go out to our entire community asking for feedback and input so that we can open up, with people, giving them a chance to provide feedback in that plan. We also have engaged Dr. Chang from the Department of Health to consult with us as we kind of navigate right now, in particular, these changing at times with the variants and what that might mean for us as we open up. As you all know, all of our students are required to be vaccinated prior to the start of classes, and we're going to continue to encourage our faculty and staff to be vaccinated as well. With the lessons learned during the pandemic, we will provide our students with hybrid learning opportunities and approved faculty and staff with teleworking options. To jump on the enrollment conversation, similar to President Hughes, very challenging times for the college and very sobering as well. You might recall this time last year, beginning of July, we saw, I think we're right about 12.9, about a 13% decline. By the time we opened, we were able to cut that down in half to about 6.5% decline when school opened. Unfortunately, right now we're experiencing about a 17% decline compared to same time a year ago. Last year about this time, we had a little over 6,109 students. Right now we're at 5,112 students. Admits are down fairly significantly at 16%. A little bit of good news on the transfer side, we're up about 4%, but the overall deposits are down 18% right now. In fact, about a month ago, it's interesting how, as we track these daily and get reports to the cabinet on a weekly basis, the numbers fluctuate quickly. A month ago, the numbers were still looking on the positive side. But then the following week, we saw numbers decline. We mobilized a task force because the numbers were not moving in the right direction. And we began to look at the different populations of students that we had to put all hands on deck, including our RIC council, deans, department heads, staff, both from student services and other parts of the campus, to reach out to students, doing phone calls, looking at students who have holds in financial holds, holds in academic advising holds, students that haven't registered and don't have any holds at all, but just haven't engaged in the process. And so we have had that task force moving for the last month, really creating a level of urgency because the numbers simply are not going in the direction that we'd like. And I'm happy to answer any questions afterwards on the enrollment front. Lots of work, major initiatives happening on the campus. Accreditation continues to move forward. Last week, the steering committee completed the third draft of our self-study. Today, the steering committee met with the cabinet to discuss some of the remaining changes needed for the self-study. Next week, next Friday, Sue Henderson, who's the chair of our visitation team from New Jersey, will be visiting campus and then talk about the logistics for November. From July 20th to August 30th, we're going to go through the final revisions, copy and editing and creation of the electronic evidence room. September 19th, we will submit our final self-study document to NECHI and the visitation team. And then from September till November, we'll do several things. One, we're going to have a public announcement of our accreditation review on website. We're going to create a campus awareness campaign. As this visitation team comes in, they will talk to students, they'll talk to staff, oftentimes randomly, and faculty. And we certainly want our community to be fully aware of the accreditation process and the role they have during that visitation. We plan on doing a presentation of the NECHI report to OPC as well. And then November 7th through the 10th, the NECHI team will be visiting our campus and concluding this part of the process. Very quick update on the GEAR funding. We're making progress on our funded initiatives. As you will recall, we received a total of $520,000 to do several things at the college to spread those resources around. Rick, we have to invest in a market analysis and data that's specific to the state and the region. We're currently finalizing a process for seeking sole source approval for a contract with MC, which is a nationally recognized kind of higher education data analytics company, and they're going to provide program level market data and alumni outcomes for all of our academic programs. MC, it's called the MC Analyst. It's a web-based software product used for analysis of industry, occupation, and educational data, as well as job postings and workforce profile data. And we'll be able to get that for all of our academic programs. Our learning management system was also part of the funding initiative. Rick's current LMS system is approaching its end of life usefulness. And now we are, I think, better positioned to develop online programs to support both adult learners and dual enrollment students, but we need to have a better LMS system to do this work. This past year, because of some of the hiring freezes, we have a vacancy in our LMS administrator. We are prioritizing that. We will hire that position, and that LMS administrator will help lead the preparing of the LMS RFP process and engagement with our faculty and the entire community to move forward. Alongside that, we've also assembled a committee comprised of faculty, students, and staff from IT, our Faculty Center for Teaching and Learning, to gather the requirements to help guide the RFP effort. But that LMS system will be absolutely critical in moving the college forward with online courses. Another part of the GEAR proposal that we put together was around professional development. As Commissioner spoke a little bit earlier around prior learning assessment, PLA, and adult student support. RIC developed plans to adapt our student support systems for adult learners and for recognizing the learning that students bring to the classroom, whether that learning comes from the workplace, military training, non-degree certifications, and self-directed learning. RIC has already signed a membership agreement with the Council for Adult and Experiential Learning to support best practices in PLA and adult learner supports. Another element of that, the funding effort was to support us in our general education revision support. As you can imagine, that is a major task and initiative by the college. RIC is in the process of reviewing its general education program as one of the stated outcomes in the GEAR funding, which is to serve in particular transfer students with seamless mobility between regional institutions. In order to achieve this goal, RIC will need to adopt a learner outcomes model of general education as opposed to what's in place right now, which is a course distribution model. But again, it's a major undertaking, but it's something we need to do if we want to better facilitate transfer rates between institutions. GEAR funding will be used to support faculty in these revisions. We're partnered with AAC&U, which is a national leader in general education development and assessment with an emphasis on access to excellence in higher education. In terms of the update, a team of 5 on that front, a team of 5 individuals, 4 faculty and our provost already attended AAC&U's General Education Institute earlier this past month in June 8th through the 11th, and revising our general education to support seamless transfer and reduce credit loss and transfer is really one of our primary goals of this work around general education. Finally, the one other element tied to this funding is the ongoing work of seamless transfer and the articulation working group. I know Shannon spoke to that a little bit earlier, so I won't go into too much depth, but I think some very good conversations between CCRI, URI, and RIC. The initial meetings are really focused on the data and seeing where our students are coming from, how do we define transfer, and working through that in order to build, I think, better collaborations and partnerships for transfer. To move on, I want to certainly thank the council for their support of approving the HBS lease. That wasn't the end of all the work on that front. State properties now, the State Properties Committee needs to meet in order to approve their part of it. They're actually scheduled for tomorrow at 10 a.m., agenda letter H. Steve Netter will be in attendance along with Scott Bromberg in order to answer any questions. We have submitted the lease to the State Properties Committee and have received no feedback. We believe that is good news. That I think typically if there are significant concerns or issues, I think they'll give you a heads up prior to that meeting. So it appears as though that is moving forward well. I want to share with you before a couple of good news items. You know, a number of staff changes are occurring at the college. You might recall we moved forward on an early retirement program. 30 faculty and staff took advantage of that program, which was the goal that we had. And so we're feeling good about that. But of course, now it requires us to fill those positions alongside many of the layoffs that we had as we were closed. In order to gear up for fall, there's just a lot of hiring we need to do. Again, very strategic, very tactical, but we know there's positions that need to be in place in order to serve our students and to deliver instruction the best that we can. In addition to that, this pandemic has hit many of our staff very hard personally. We're going to be losing our AVP and Dean of Students as she was, her family was impacted, and she'll be moving to Arkansas to help lead an institution out there. And so we're having to move, particularly in student services, some of the leadership around. Dr. Ducha Hang will now be an AVP under Student Success. And we are bringing back Eric Rivera. He was with us over a year ago in transition period, and he will help us put together a national search for the next permanent vice president of student success. Just a couple very quick good news items. I also want to thank our Chief of Police, Chief Mendonca, and his entire team for all their efforts in putting together not just extensive policies, but the training required for their full accreditation. But they have been working for well over a year to accomplish this, and they've been able to get to the other side of that. This year, we actually saw the largest amount of external grants to the institution in 6 years, over $10.2 million in external grant funding to the college, which we're very, very excited. And then, as many of you should be receiving very, very soon, the Rhode Island College Next Magazine is now out, which is not showing up on my screen very well, but is out and in the mailboxes, and you should be receiving that very, very soon. We're already getting some very positive feedback on that. That concludes my report. I'm happy to answer any questions that members might have. Thank you.
Thank you, President Sanchez. Questions from the council for President Sanchez? Mr. Duffy.
Just a quick one. Frank, any thoughts or anything you can tell us about longer term strategies for recruiting students and filling those seats? I mean, it's a challenge we talk about a lot, but where are you going? Who's the target market? And do you really have the right assets in hand to fully evaluate where the potential students are and how to reach them?
Absolutely. There's several strategies I'll share with you. One of them is going to be, as we do this MC study and do the market analysis, is identifying which programs are we projecting growth in need and demand here in the state and in the region, and then grow those, as well as new curriculum. I mean, this is going to do an assessment of existing curriculum, but it's going to provide us some guidance of what some of the new curriculum should be, so we can help develop that and evolve that. A second area, certainly, and this was part of the compact, we know that we can be competitive reaching and supporting and guiding adult learners in and through Rhode Island College to get their 4-year degree. You've heard both President Hughes and myself talk about the data that's out there, the 130, 140,000 Rhode Islanders with some college credit. I would argue there is not a clear path or an easy path to a 4-year degree, both either geographically or in terms of affordability. I would argue Rhode Island College can be very competitive in that area. The third area for the college is around retention. I've said before, it costs less to keep a student than to recruit a student. We have to continue to look at our systems, from scheduling, our transfer processes, but the academic support for our students to stay in school. We have to continue to organize that well. And I think we have an opportunity getting ready to hire a new vice president for student success to really take a hard look at the portfolio of our traditional student affairs operations, our academic support pieces, and our enrollment management pieces, and align them for the future. I do believe there may need to be some new alignments, much more closer with academic affairs, so that you ensure that each of the schools are fully informed with enrollment data year in and year out. Sometimes when you don't have that tight organization, you lose a little bit in translation. We can't afford to lose any translation these days. And so looking at how we're organized will be another, I think, another effort to address some of those enrollment concerns that we're seeing now and are projecting, at least for the foreseeable future.
Chair Cotton.
Yes, my question was, part of that answer was on that market analysis MC, and what the timing was for it, what you thought you were gonna maybe get out of it, and when you use that information to turn into a strategic plan.
So we're required on our pot of funds, the 520, we're required to spend it all by December. And so we have to do that now to use the funds. And so we're moving diligently to get this sole source done and to get that done. But let me share with you that that's not the only way. As you'll recall, a year ago, when we launched the Strategic Budget Resource Planning Committee, we also were looking very closely at the Delaware study, which is, of course, is kind of a national clearinghouse of data analysis and cost and expenses across academic departments across the country. You know, it's been around for about 30 years now. There's over 700 plus institutions participating. So while this market analysis will be another level for us to look at our projections for the future of academic programs, as well as potentially new curriculum, we still have the hard work of looking at the cost of our academic programs as well. And this is all part of our provost program review process, which she certainly can speak to a little bit later, and how she's going through that process to look at not just the quality of our programs, but the financial feasibility of our programs and the potential for enrollment growth. This is long overdue, and we're very, very excited that, you know, I think there's a couple more I's dotted and T's crossed to get this sole source through, but we're very excited if we can get that done. But it has to happen quickly.
So if we have the sole source, and you talked about the Delaware study, and then the financial, certainly feasibility of different programs, when are you gearing to have that full picture, you know, to be informed to make any changes?
I'm gonna have Helen come on board, but I'll tell you, all the academic programs will receive their data, at least from what the college data has on enrollments, cost, expenses, you know, total expenses of the number of faculty. We're going to have that to them by the end of summer. I'm going to have, I think, Helen, Provost Tate is on the line here. She can kind of lay out how we anticipate using MC and the long-term plan for the program review process. You see if Helen can join us here.
And if it's longer than that, I don't know, Mr. Chairman, if you want to put it to another meeting, I'm fine with that as well.
So Councilmember Cottom, I will be giving an update on our GEARS funding at every meeting. I'm happy to kind of go into a little bit more depth, if you like, at the next meeting, specific on this point of the program review process. And we certainly can have Provost Tate do some details.
That's fine with me. I'm looking to see directionally, you know, where the college is going and how these pieces fit in, timing, and it goes to Member Duffy's question as well, looking at enrollment, you know, at both schools, how we compare to others. And, you know, when we see us coming out of COVID, if we don't have a further pause, and what the future looks like.
Yeah, well, and Provost Tate is on the video now. We know, and we've known for some time in New England, of any region in the nation, you see the sharpest decline in population. And so we know that's going to happen. And if we want to either stabilize or have any chance of growth, we're going to have to look at different populations. And, you know, Linda Borg said, you know, Rhode Island College has changed its mission. We're not changing our mission. Our mission has always been to serve Rhode Islanders. Now we're going to serve Rhode Islanders better by reaching out to new populations. But Helen, I don't know if you want to add anything.
Yeah, I'm happy to provide just a little framework, and I would be happy to do a longer presentation at another time if it's appropriate, exactly about what I've been up to with this program review process. But to be honest, there aren't many program review process that really integrate the sustainability, the feasibility of a program, along with the quality of the program. And we're integrating those together through a yearly process, a report that we run that has the same kind of metrics for all programs, so that we can compare apples to oranges. And we look at the set of metrics, but we're looking at it trended over time. so we can see what the enrollments in different programs are. What I will be doing with that information is gathering that all together and with the deans developing academic plans. What is it? Where do we need to invest? Like I know some programs that are really struggling for growth, but we haven't been able to put the resources there. There's other areas where there hasn't been growth. And if there are vacancies there, perhaps we're not going to fill those vacancies. And we start to really do academic planning based on the information. I want to point out that some of the data included marketability. We're talking about two different ends. You're talking about a market for your student after that student graduates. Where can they go and work? What skills can they bring into the workforce? And we're talking about a market in terms of what are students interested in studying? And you also have to recognize those don't always align. Sometimes what students are interested in studying isn't necessarily where there's a lot of job opportunities. So one of the things we're going to be able to get out of some of the data we're looking at for MC is looking at career trajectories. Where do our students go with degrees? And we'll be able to get some specific data on the kinds of skills needed in the places where our students have been going after they graduate, so that we can enhance the programs we already have and increase their alignment with workforce needs. So there's a lot of value that will come out of this data that we're going to bring in from MC. But this program review process will pull together multiple sets of data trended to give us good information about academic planning, and that will be an ongoing process.
Thank you. Mr. Mello. Oh, I'm sorry,
Just a
Bob,
quick-
did you have a-
No, I was just going to say, I look forward to that because I think it's important for the strategic planning viability of schools as we faced, as the president said, reduced enrollment, from the population, and then what the jobs of tomorrow are. And while the two may not align to a student's interest and where the jobs are, we need to inform students and educate them as to what the future workforce looks like.
We're really looking forward to that part. I think students often come in their degree programs and not really sure the path to where they want to go. And the MC data does a really good job with alumni outcomes. Where did our students go? And what kinds of jobs did they get? Many of the career or majors that you have, they're not a direct pathway. They're in education, they're not nurse, teacher. And where do those students go? We need to know, and we need to be talking to those workforce partners to say, hey, how are our students doing there? You have our theater majors, you have a lot of our psychology majors. What are they doing? And gathering that information so that we can improve the programs when students choose a pathway, help them choose that pathway, knowing where the future opportunities are in that pathway. And we'll be able to do that much better with the kind of data that we're planning to gather.
Great. Thank you. Over to you, Mr. Mello.
Just a quick question for President Sanchez. He mentioned that, it's easier to retain students than it is to find new students. And I'm just wondering, what are the retention numbers looking like from the spring to now the fall enrollment? What do those numbers look like, and how do you anticipate on making those better if they're not what you think they should be?
Yeah, no, they're not where they need to be. We are very concerned at the number of returning students. Right now, we have about 80%, as of last week, about 80% of students who are eligible to get registered have registered. But let me see, is Ducha or Eric on the call today? We can get you the retention fall to fall, freshman full-time population, as well as our general population. I don't have that right offhand in front of me.
Okay.
I
Thank
can
you.
just add a little bit of information. We have had pretty good retention up until now. I think this last year was a bit more than students could take. And that's where we're seeing that students are not registering, whereas we had pretty good retention considering everything that happened for our fall 20, this past fall 20 class. They came back. We're seeing that they're not coming back this fall. And so that indicates that there's been some real impact over this last year that we did not initially see in the pandemic.
Of course, one of the concerns, and this is true across state colleges across the country, when you serve a large percentage, for us, nearly 50% are Pell eligible. They're coming from modest means, blue collar working class families. They've been disproportionately hit by the pandemic. And so whether a parent or two or both lost their job, or certainly our students lost their job that pays for books or helps pay for that tuition, they've been impacted. And so we're, as there's really no trend data like what we're going through here, we're kind of doing the outreach, trying to reach out to students to see how they're doing, where they need assistance, how we can support them. My worry, and we're hearing this from institutions across the country, some of these students just kind of fall off the grid a little bit because they have other priorities, they have other areas of focus. And I would say not necessarily drop out, but stop out. They might need a year, a semester or two to save enough funds to be able to continue their education. And so that's some of the data we're trying to track as we get students enrolled.
Great, thank you. Any other questions for President Sanchez?
Chair Deljudas, just a comment, obviously for both President Hughes and President Sanchez, and I know your teams are working on this feverishly to try to figure it out, but this isn't potentially an epidemic in really losing a generation of talent in the workforce, and then also losing a generation of educated learners. I don't know right now what we can do as a council to address it, but I'd really second what Dennis Duffy said, Member Duffy. If we don't get the flow from the K through 12 group, K through 12 educational system into these colleges, I am very concerned about that. And I'm obviously concerned about current enrollees at both CCRI and RIC, and how do we get them back? So if we could spend some time on that as a council in the very near future, I would greatly appreciate that, to know what I can do personally to help.
Member Monti.
Oh, if I could just say, you're absolutely right. In addition to locking in our enrollment for this fall, simultaneously, we're already thinking about 22 because the cycle starts at the end of August and beginning of September. And so what are we doing differently? How are we going to have a different approach with what we know today to engage those families of tomorrow for next year? Because we're going to have to break out of the level of decline and the bleeding, as they say. We have 1 year because of the federal stimulus support that's going to help us. That's not going to be there in another year. And so we have to put that plan together now as well.
Member Monti, this is Shannon. I want to comment on that too. In addition to the decline in the K-12 pipeline prior to the pandemic, this country had about 10,000 baby boomers retiring every day. If we see that decline in that pipeline and we see the re-uptick in that generation retiring, talk about a talent infrastructure problem when we only have 52% of Rhode Islanders with some form of a credential. It's an adult strategy in my mind. It's closing the pipe between K-12 and post-secondary. Getting our FAFSA completion rate before the pandemic was about 66%. It's getting it above 90%. So more students are coming into and other in college readiness issues, to Member Duffy's point, where they stay and retain, but it's also those adult and short-term credentials, because we're going to have a significant, if we can define talent as part of our infrastructure to build our economy and maintain our economy, we have a significant infrastructure problem. I think one thing the council can do is continue to advocate the legislator to see our talent gaps and the potential, I think, epidemic is correct, and advocate for investment in that type of infrastructure, because we're already in a labor shortage in this state and around the country. So it's right to think in those terms in my mind.
Great, thank you. All right, I think that concludes the Commissioner and President's reports. And I'll note we're almost 2 hours into the meeting. That was a very healthy informative discussion. I appreciate everybody's engagement on those discussions. Next, we're going to move into the action items. I'll note for the record that for each of the action items listed in items 6A through E, there are significant read-aheads provided to all of the council members in advance, and I'm sure they've been thoroughly reviewed. Going right into the first item, item 6A is a new classification of Director of Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Organizational Development at the Community College of Rhode Island. I've got to just before we get into them specifically, Madam President, these documents, I'm not sure if there was a technical problem or what happened, but as I reviewed them over the weekend, the first, for items 6A and 6B, the first page is illegible. I couldn't make heads or tails of what the documents were trying to say. I don't know if everybody else had that problem. I'm trying to peek at Tom Izzo's across the way. Then the justifications on both were, they talk about things within the company and clients and something with, again, I just think there are typos throughout that on the justification paragraph. And on the third, they're not, it looks like Ms. Bailey did not take action either to approve or disapprove on any of them. So on the PRC document, there's an approved by Lee Ogden and approved by Kim Albright, and I'm sorry, Karen Albright, but not a marking for Ms. Bailey. So I don't know if it's just on my documents or if that's like this across the board, but I was concerned about what I've read as I read through these.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I'm not seeing what you're seeing. AVP Ogden is on the call. I'll ask her to respond and I guess briefly say these do not involve additions to our FTEs. These are reclassifications. Alix, why don't I turn it over to you? Because I honestly, Mr. Chair, I'm not sure exactly what you're referencing. So I need to see what you're seeing. Alix, do you have a helpful response?
I'm pulling them up, but Chairman, I don't see the same thing that you do. I'd be want to know if other of the council members did. Sorry, I'm just kind of catching up on what, as you're bringing it forward.
So can I ask from the other council members if you packet for item 6A, there's the cover page with the memo from the commissioner recommending that it move forward from the PRC. Then the next page is a CCRI letterhead, and it's just kind of gobbledygook. I checked with the commissioner's office. They said this is how they received it when I got here this evening.
Yeah, so that's definitely not how it was sent over. So I don't know if there was an issue with.
Does your copy show that Ms. Bailey took action on them?
No, the thing I'm looking at shows her signature on it. I know she signed it because it comes to me afterwards.
I see her signature, but it doesn't say approve or disapprove on any of them.
Oh, that's true. I see that as well. Well, she signed it. She approved it because otherwise it wouldn't have come to me by our workflow. That just wouldn't have happened. But I see what you're saying about that for sure.
And it's like that on all three. So is it just mine? Dennis, is yours?
No, I think I see the same.
I do too. Yeah.
It looks like a lot of blank spaces too.
Yeah.
A lot of the areas under the request, there are items listed, but they're left blank.
Mm-hmm.
So
I have that too.
I'm concerned is that we're acting on things that I feel are incomplete.
Understand. Well, let me circle back. I think that I understand what you're looking at and understand the concern on it. And that you're saying that's true for all three of
For
the
the first
requests.
two, for the gobbledygook is in 6A and 6B.
Yeah, so I don't see the gobbledygook, but I see what you're saying about the cover page. Perhaps, and I'm sorry, because I'm just reacting to this in live time. I will. So I understand the concern of the council, of course, and I guess what I would request then is that we take it up at the next meeting and we can clarify what needs to be clarified.
Right.
I think maybe, Mr. Chairman, if we don't want to waste any time on getting these things filled, another option would be for us to approve them with the, the full paperwork submitted to the commissioner for his approval, our authority to grant him that. I mean, I'm just trying not to waste time here, but I think we do want to see all the file, or at least have the commissioner see that for us.
Yep.
So I'll just say a couple of things. Really wish we had known. We absolutely would have taken action to correct this. These positions, all three of them, reflect, I would describe as an improvement and advancement of positions that are already here, that are really important to the college. It's the director of DEI. It's the support position there. Those are roles that have existed that we are simply strengthening. The other role is, again, an existing role that we are strengthening. I absolutely don't want to jump over this vitally important part. I want to move the meeting forward also, and I'm hopeful we can come back with something that meets the council's support and approval before a meeting in September, or else we're going to be sort of looking at 6 to 7 weeks where we can't post for these positions that are really important to the college. So
Are the positions currently filled and occupied and you're upgrading them?
2 of them, no. One of them, and again, I'll turn it back over to Alix, is really about changing the title of the position. So that one, the person is in C2, the other 2, no. And we really want to be focusing on that work. So Alix, Member Duffy, and look, if we have to delay it till the next meeting because of protocol, of course we'll do that. And you have my apologies that this is what you're seeing it. I really regret I'm learning it in live time. So any other, should we just move forward, or what would you like to do, Mr.
I would
Chair?
just, I think the only even clarification, but addition I would say is for the 2 DEI positions, those are 2 positions. They're new job description, but they're not new positions. 2 people have recently left the college who were in similar positions, and we're just aligning it more to how we know the work needs to get done.
Dennis, did you have another question? I'm sorry.
Well, I guess I didn't understand when it says reclassification. I don't know what that is. And I think I understand now, but I guess one of the questions would be, would we go ahead and make hires before we have this information filled out? Well, and also the bigger question is, what hires do we want to make in light of the financial problems that have been brought to light and the challenges ahead of the institution?
Well, I guess I would say very briefly, the role that already exists is the head of our Providence campus, who is leading our partnerships with Rhode and other community partners. So she's in C2. That's not a posting of a job. It's
what does C2 mean?
No, it's in C2. It's already existing. It's extant. She's working with the college right now. It's about creating a more intelligent job description that matches what we expect her to do. That's it. It was an outdated job description, and we wanted it to reflect the work that she's actually doing for the college. So that's that one, Dennis. The other 2 are part of our institutional equity and human resources team. I can say we would be, and I would be concerned if we were talking about eliminating the director of DEI. institutional equity. That's a priority. I think it is crucial to getting the work done that we're trying to do at the college. So they're not new hires. These are folks who are moving on to new opportunities, and we're simply trying to, as Alik's attempted to say, because we have this opportunity to create job descriptions that frankly are even better than the ones that we launched several years ago. That's it. So, but I think there were two. So as with respect to the financial component, we've got, I hope we still have Kristen on this call. We have the resources for these roles. They are a priority. That was not the question we were bringing forward. We simply wanted the council to see and to be supportive of what we believe is an improvement over the job descriptions as they were originally conceived, in some cases, many, many years ago with the Providence campus and that academic affairs support role. And with the DEI roles, those are relatively new roles for the college. We've written them into our focus over the last 5 years. Again, I think they're absolutely essential. We're just trying to make them even better. When we launched them, and they were our first attempt.
Okay, I'm sorry. I saw Senator Izzo first, then Ms. Monti second.
And Mr. Chairman, I'm not certain that it's appropriate right at this moment because you were looking at I don't know if we're talking about them generally. It seems the conversation is generally. So if that's the case, I have a question with regards to the facilitator position. It's fairly clear what it is. I'm just curious. The salary range is 48 to 102,000, right? And the person does a BA degree or an equivalent combination of education and experience. So when does a person arrive at possibly $102,000 and doesn't even have to have a bachelor's degree? I mean, maybe I'm an outlier in thinking this way, but that just caught my attention and struck me as, wow.
I'm gonna ask Ms. Coleman to respond to that first.
Senator,
Loud enough for the room to hear.
Senator, the salary range is established by the council because of situations that the council had in the past about approving salary increases. The range is ridiculous. I fully agree with you that the range is ridiculous, but there is currently no mechanism under council policy for a position to progress from $44,000 to $102,000. So the incumbent will be hired, I assume, based upon the qualifications and the duties and responsibilities, and I'll defer to Lisa on that, at the lower end of the range, and they will not progress to the higher level.
Right.
To the higher level of the range.
I can actually address that. So, Senator, the way that we envision this role is actually, it's at a lower salary than the person who recently left the job. What we need is someone in a coordination support role. This role does a ton of programming. And so we do our management series out of it, our supervisor series out of it, our entire DEI programming. There's a lot of like logistics work that goes into that. That's how we're envisioning this job, which is very different from the director bringing strategy and networking, frankly, and other pieces to the work. So I thank Anne-Marie, thank you for the clarification. We're not looking to bring in someone at $100,000 for the facilitator role at all.
Right, thank you, Ms. Monti.
Can Anne-Marie just explain again? I didn't quite get why the range is there and why it can't be changed.
I can explain that reason. Over the years, as salary increases were approved by the board and then by the council, there were determinations made as to whether or not the entire range was going to move or if just the maximum was going to move. It was the position prior to President Sanchez's presidency from Rhode Island College that they never sought to have the minimum move. They only sought to have the maximum move to give them greater flexibility. That has created unrealistic salary ranges that have been in effect for about 25 years. So the hiring salary for a non-union position is very broad, but the actual salary that you target for an individual position has to do with budgeted and where that position fits in the structure of the college.
So that's just the full range for almost every job?
That's the full range for that particular pay grade. Every non-classified,
Oh, for
non-union
the
pay grade has a different range, but they are all, you'll see the ranges for the union positions are like this. The ranges for the non-union positions are much wider because for many years, the minimum was not changed, just the maximum.
Thank you. Over to you, Ms. Monty. And I'm told we can move on these with subject to technical corrections being submitted.
I was just going to second that, Chair Del Judas, just in the essence of time. And I would want to make the connection point around attraction and retention of students, of having a DE&I person on board. I don't think you can underestimate the power of having someone internal to both of these colleges, frankly, that is focused on that work. And so connecting it back to our previous conversation, even if it was all technically wrong in the documents, and I'm not seeing that. I did not print them. I had them online, but I would strongly suggest that. And as it relates to the HR positions, you should pay them as much as you possibly can.
Thank you. So also, at least when you get to the technical corrections, the org charts, I think need to be updated also in the back of the packets. But we'll move forward, subject to the technical cleanup, and work with Anne Marie to make sure that they're as should be. So all of that, we have a motion that the Council on Post-Secondary Education approve the recommendation from the Systems Personnel Review Committee regarding the new classification of Director, Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Organizational Development at the community college. Motion made by
So moved.
Ms. Monty, seconded by
Hello.
Sheila, would you please call the roll?
Chairman Del Judas,
Yes.
Barbara Cottom,
Yes.
Dennis Duffy,
Yes.
Rochelle Green,
Yes.
Senator Izzo,
Yes.
Michael Mello,
Yes.
Mary Monty,
Yes.
Bishop Jeffrey Williams.
Absolutely.
Great, unanimously approved. Thank you. May I have a motion that the Council on Post-Secondary Education approve the recommendation of the Systems Personnel Review Committee regarding the new classification of Facilitator, Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion and Organizational Development at CCRI. Motion made by?
Mello.
Seconded by?
Monty.
Thank you. Jill, would you call the roll?
Chairman Del Judas,
Yes.
Barbara Cottom,
Yes.
Dennis Duffy,
Yes.
Rochelle Green,
Yes.
Senator Izzo,
Yes.
Michael Mello,
Yes.
Mary Monty,
Yes.
Bishop Williams.
Yes.
Excellent, unanimously approved, thank you. Last for item 6C on these, we have a motion that the Council on Post-Secondary Education approve a recommendation from the Systems Personnel Review Committee regarding new classification of Director, Academic Success Initiatives and Community Partnerships at the Community College of Rhode Island. Motion made by
Duffy.
Duffy, seconded by
Mello.
Jill, would you call the roll, please?
Chairman Del Judas,
Yes.
Barbara Cottom,
Yes.
Dennis Duffy,
Yes.
Rochelle Green,
Yes.
Senator Izzo,
Yes.
Michael Mello,
Yes.
Mary Monty,
Yes.
Bishop Williams.
Yes.
Thank you. Unanimously approved for item 6D. Moving on to, I'm sorry, 6C. Moving on to 6D, approval of a new academic program, Bachelor of Professional Studies at Rhode Island College. You'll note different from during the Commissioner's report. This is a new program that was determined to be outside of the current role scope of the college. Therefore, it does require a vote by the council, and then it will move on to the New England Accreditation Authority, whose acronym I say wrong every time, NISHI, for their approval as well. So move to a motion and then to discuss. So with that, we have a motion that we So we've received a proposal from Rhode Island College to establish a new academic program leading to a bachelor's degree in professional studies. Since this degree type is not currently in the role and scope of Rhode Island College, it does require approval. May I have a motion that the Council on Post-Secondary Education approve the new academic program, Bachelor of Professional Studies at Rhode Island College as presented? Motion made by Mr. Rizzo, seconded by Mello. And discussion on the topic. 6D. Ms. Cottom, Chair Cottom.
I don't know if I'm open. I've been going back and forth here. Am I open? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Hear you loud and clear.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
So the background for this creation, I read the materials given. But I look at this with the work that's underway and we're moving this forward now. So if you could just speak to that.
Yeah, I'm gonna have Helen take the lead on this. This speaks directly to reaching out to more adult learners and helping more Rhode Islanders finish their degree, in this case, a bachelor's degree around professional studies. You'll see in the paperwork, concentration around organizational behavior and social services. But I'm going to have Helen offer any additional detail on why now.
Yeah, and I think, Chair Cottom, just to clarify, you're asking about the timeline for the development of this, am I correct?
Well, for the development of this and moving this forward with the other work underway. So
Yeah.
Why the recommendation for this now?
So the proposal that you have, we have a timeline that will require us to move this clear through for, as Chair Del Judas indicated, for NECHI approval, for both being an online program and a new degree program. Part of that timeline that we have worked out is it has to be approved by our governing body before we can get the approvals to for NECHI. So the first step is developing this curriculum. And we've put in a lot of work this year. The Vice Provost for Academic Affairs, Holly Shadoyan, Dean of the School of Social Work, and my Dean of the School of Business have worked this past year to develop a curriculum. This one is built on the best practices for adult learners. When you look at the program that we've developed, it incorporates many of the things that Commissioner Gilkey has been talking about the need to do. For example, the prior learning assessments, which helps advance adult learners, bring value what they learn and give them credit for what they already know. So that's built into this program. It's built specifically for those adults who have some college and no degree, and this is a path for them to complete. We have a particular market in mind for that social services. We have, as I know you know well, we have a very strong social work program, and we have a lot of community partners, and we've been in conversation with those community partners, and they're asking for pathways for their employees. So we already have a built-in market here. The ideal timeline, if this body approves this degree program, we have the curriculum. The next step will be to put forward a substantive change proposal that would go to NECHI in August to get permission to put this program online, because it will be our first fully online program. The soonest we could launch this would be what we're calling a soft launch in January, because it would not require a great deal of marketing. We already have those community partners, and we have a ready audience. And we feel like we could start that program off soft without a lot of extra needs financially. And launching it in a cohort model would allow us to launch it without additional expense, because the tuition generated by that cohort would pay for those courses to be offered. If we didn't have a cohort, we wouldn't offer it. If we're behind on our timeline, if we hit snags along the way, we can still back up that start date. But we've set a date of January of next year to be able to launch this program, and we're stepping through all those steps. Created the curriculum. We're doing the professional development right now. I think you heard earlier the president's report on our gear funding. We sent 25 faculty to CALES, PLA, Professional Development Workshop, 4-day workshop for those faculty to develop the skills and knowledge needed to do the prior learning assessment that's embedded in that particular curriculum. So we've got a full timeline, and the timeline for right now is to get it approved by our governing body forward for accreditation.
And so you just feel that with that this program, whether now or later, would be part and integral to the future strategic plan for the college?
Yes, right now we don't have a particular degree pathway that serves adult learners in general. Most of the many of the adult learners who come to us aren't interested in a particular degree, they're interested in finishing a degree. And so this will provide a lot of students with a pathway to that 4-year degree that they're looking for. But it's also built very specifically for the adult learner in terms of the coursework. This is not our general education that we have for our traditional students. It's not the same course requirements. We're using the same learning outcomes, but we've really adapted it for adult learners. We've set it up so that we can do it in a cohort model, so they're not repeating coursework they've already had. So yeah, we actually think
so this is not for
learner.
Your undergraduate,
no,
or traditional student.
No, it's specifically targeted to those new markets that we've been talking about, those populations of students who in this state do not have a good path for an affordable 4-year degree. They need a pathway to complete the degrees that the state wants them to have, that we want them to have for their own career advancement. If you think about how many students are out there that have some college and no degree, and they're working in jobs that are a dead end for them without that 4-year degree, this is an opportunity to provide a pathway to a 4-year degree that is focused on the professional development needs that they have.
Mr. Guthrie.
I missed it, but what's the tuition?
That's one of the issues that we're still working on figuring out, and we'll have to bring a proposal forward. We've discussed the fact that they are not like our traditional, maybe 18-year-old or first-time student, and they will not be using the same services. So we are in conversation. We've been talking to Steve about looking at a different fee structure for these students. And so we will be, having more conversation about, does it make sense to charge them the student activities fees? Maybe those are some things that these students may not be using. And so we're doing some assessment of what those fees and tuition might be.
My understanding, though, all tuition is set by the council. So you can come back to us on that?
Absolutely.
So, go ahead, Senator Rizzo.
Yeah, and just the opposite. I've been wondering when we were going to do this. Not so long ago, we gave College Unbound the opportunity to do this. Tonight, we're going to approve another piece that gives them, they're really our competitors in a way, but a competitor in a good way, right? And the other thing I see, the perfect timing for this is if the community college is reaching out to this cohort and they've put in 4 million, something to that effect, that this becomes a perfect segue for them to go from the community college and then complete. So, I mean, and that was going to be one of my questions. I'm assuming that you all work very closely to establish that pathway and that seamless transfer. I mean, I've been waiting. Connecticut has, what is Cedar or something or other? They have a whole college that does just this, part of their public system of higher ed.
We do see that this will be an opportunity for transfer students. As you'll see in the proposal, it's targeted for 25 and above. And part of that is because we're looking for the work experience. But as you heard President Hughes say earlier, many of their students are adult learners who are pursuing those degrees, right? They're dropping in and dropping out, and they're working and they're trying to finish degrees. We see this as a pathway for those students who are still, working towards their degrees, whether they can do that 2-year, would have to have the 2-year, but they're working adults that are looking for a pathway, and this is built specifically for them. It is not built for the traditional undergraduate, and the age limit on this program is actually 25.
Can I go ahead, Barbara? Chair Cottom?
So So to start this program, you have to be 25 years of age. And what is the job outcome from this degree? Because I'm not comfortable with, we had lots of conversation, and I know at CCRI, President Hughes over her tenure has really transitioned students into pathways where there's opportunities for jobs instead of just general studies.
Is particularly, we purposely made this not general studies. The two pathways that are here, and there are opportunities for other pathways as we have the opportunity, of course, to do more market analysis. We are very confident in the two pathways we have here. The first one, the social services, we did some initial data from MC. They gave us one example of one of our programs, and it happened to be our social work program. And there are absolutely jobs and needs in that area. And their data showed us that there was a lot of postings in those areas. In addition to the conversations that we've been having with our community partners in social services, there's a high demand in that area. So we do believe that that is a path that will provide an opportunity for students who are looking for a job to move up in their careers. The second area is organizational leadership, and that is focused on business. It's focused on, business and professional careers. It's not as specific as the social services. It's a more general degree, but we have a lot of folks in this state that are working in business and industry with some college and no degree and looking for a path to finish that 4-year degree. So we think these are the two most likely tracks to provide opportunity for students in the state.
Senator,
just an observation. It isn't necessarily that there has to be that they're looking for a job at the end of this. They're already in a job. If we listen to what Unbound said, that's precisely the type of people that they're serving. They're already in positions. This will help them either go up the ladder or be able to express. The other thing is that, I don't know how many years ago it was, but the Rhode Island Foundation did a study in social services and nonprofits. I'm not certain if it was the biggest or the second largest employer in the state of Rhode Island.
Thank you, Senator Izzo. You are correct. This is a career advancement for many people in Rhode Island. Or again, when you recognize how many jobs and opportunities require a 4-year degree, we have a lot of folks who are stuck in their careers and they're looking for advancement, and this targets that population.
This Shannon, just add one comment, since I did a lot of this work in my prior life of engaging employers and happy to help, is that for those two industries you're targeting, maybe bringing together and hosting an employer collaborative of those actual providers, get them in a room, let's talk about their talent pipeline needs, and maybe you can get those kind of help them build kind of a grow your own strategy where they're actually helping to offset tuition and wraparound service costs for those adults. I think employers are having some significant pain points when it comes to talent, and they might be willing to set up a scholarship for those two pathways to really reduce the cost for their own workers or maybe a potential recruit. And I implemented several of these in my prior life, and I'm happy to help map that out for Rick.
Appreciate that. Thank you for that advice.
Thank you, Commissioner. Ms. Monty.
I would just add and second what Commissioner said, employers who offer tuition reimbursement out of the gate, who are looking to help their employees retain their employees through that 4-year, 2-year, 3-year commitment is right now, it's a kind of a tale of two cities, right? I mean, we're desperately trying to keep our talent and not have them leave and go somewhere else, and other people can't find jobs. It's ridiculous. So yeah, I think it's another element here of getting the employer involved on the front end of this discussion.
Great, I appreciate that. We certainly have had the employers involved on the social services. We could do some more to involve our community on the organizational leadership track. Thank you for that.
Great. So thank you, Provost Tate and President Sanchez. I'll just chime in. I agree with everything that was said tonight. This is decades in coming at Rhode Island College. It's fantastic. I'm so glad we're launching. You can feel that we have a strong appetite for more information. We want to hear more on the financials. We want to hear more specific on your market analysis, more specific on your enrollment strategy, retention strategy, the whole thing. But we also recognize that you're building the boat while you're sailing it here, and you want to get it down the pike. We want to get it up and running. I'm curious to know, not tonight, what the next 2, 3, 4 programs are that are in the pipeline on this, and all of that information, because this is one of the biggest things to happen, I think, at Rhode Island College in a long time. So great on the work, a lot of work to do, and we're anxious to hear a lot more detail as it all matures as we move this down the field.
Thank you. And thank you for your support of this. We've used our GEAR funding, the $500,000 to put some of the infrastructure in place to make this possible. So I appreciate your support of this program.
Thank you. Any more discussion on the motion? Great. So we have a motion on the floor that was made by Senator Rizzo and seconded by Mr. Mello. Joe, would you please call the roll?
Chairman Del Judas,
Yes.
Barbara Cottom,
Yes.
Dennis Duffy,
Yes.
Rochelle Green,
Yes.
Senator Izzo, Michael Mello,
Yes.
Mary Ann Monty,
Yes.
Bishop Williams.
Yes.
Great. Unanimously approved. Go forth, do great work, and please come back to us with lots more information as your boat sets sail there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great. Moving on to item 6E, a Sarah application from College Unbound. May I have a motion that the Council on Post-Secondary Education approve the Round Sarah application from College Unbound? Motion made by Senator Izzo, seconded by
Duffy.
Mr. Duffy. Any discussion on the topic? Great. Joe, would you call the roll?
Chairman Del Judas,
Yes.
Barbara Cottom,
Yes.
Dennis Duffy,
Yes.
Rochelle Green,
Yes.
Senator Izzo,
Yes.
Michael Mello,
Yes.
Mary Ann Monty,
Yes.
Bishop Williams.
Yes.
Great, unanimously approved. Next, may I have a motion, Council on Post-Secondary Education enter into executive session for the following items: to discuss collective bargaining, all bargaining units pursuant to Rhode Island General Law 4246582, and discussion regarding potential litigation pursuant to Rhode Island General Law 4246582. Motion made by Izzo, seconded by Mello. All those in favor? Aye.
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 Any opposed? Stands passed. It'll take us a couple of minutes to go into executive session. We'll neck down to council members, the commissioner, the president, and I believe the presidency just asked for one member of their senior staff. Otherwise, we'll lock the meeting down. When we come back, we're just going to adjourn. So if we please lock the system. I'm going to step out for a second while you do that.
They're still recording this.
We'll just need a couple minutes to clear the room. The session is still live.
And for whoever's helping